Leo braced his shoulder against the slab and shoved. The heavy stone groaned, grinding against grit until a crack of light widened. He stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something ozone-sharp. A soft, bioluminescent blue glow emanated from the moss, clinging to the cavern walls, casting long, wavering shadows across the floor. Leo pulled his compass from his pocket. The needle spun in frantic, erratic circles, refusing to settle. Behind him, Sarah stepped across the threshold, her flashlight cutting a harsh white beam through the dim blue haze. She shifted the weight of her pack and reached for a coil of rope. Then, the sound of stone sliding against stone echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. The heavy door slammed shut. The boom vibrated in their chests, rattling the loose gravel at their feet. The silence that followed was absolute. No light filtered through the seams. No draft stirred the air. They were sealed in. Leo turned, pressing his palms against the cold, unyielding surface. But it did not budge. The entrance was gone, and the only path forward was deeper into the glowing dark. The tunnel split into 3 narrow conduits. Leo traced the wall, feeling for the draft that whispered through the dark. He pointed left, where the air stirred the fine dust on the ground. They dropped to their knees, moving forward with slow, deliberate shuffles. Sharp pebbles bit into their skin through every movement, and the ceiling pressed low against their backs. For minutes, there was only the sound of rhythmic breathing and the scrape of gear against stone. Then, the incline shifted. The solid ground beneath them turned into a steep, smooth chute. Before Leo could plant a hand to steady himself, the floor vanished. They slid downward, gathering speed as the tunnel opened up into a massive hollow space. They tumbled out, landing on a bed of loose shale. Leo stood, shaking the dust from his arms, and looked up. The chamber stretched out, vast and silent, illuminated by the same blue moss that clung to the high, arched ceiling. In the dead center of the room, surrounded by a pool of ink-black water, sat a pedestal. Resting upon it was a golden chest, polished and untouched by time. They walked to the water's edge, the scale of the room making them feel small. And for a moment, the danger behind them was forgotten in the face of the prize. Leo took a breath and stepped onto the first of the floating stones. It wobbled, the surface slick under his boots. He balanced, arms outstretched, and reached for the next rock that led toward the center pedestal. Sarah watched from the bank, her flashlight beam locked on the golden chest. As Leo's weight shifted to the third stone, a low hum vibrated through the floor. The water around the pedestal turned from still black to a churning, white-capped froth. Bubbles erupted against the surface, popping with a sharp hissing sound. The rock beneath Leo's feet groaned, a deep grinding noise echoing against the cave walls. It began to dip. He lunged forward, trying to find purchase on the next stone, but the water surged upward, swirling in aggressive, cold eddies. The stone he had just left vanished entirely, dragged down into the dark depths by a sudden, powerful current. Leo scrambled, his fingers clawing at the slick, wet rock of the next platform. His boots slid, his balance failed, and the water rose to his ankles, ice cold and pulling hard. He fought to survive, the chamber turned traitor. Sarah whipped the rope through the air. The hook bit into a high stalactite with a sharp metallic ring. He plunged, gripping fibers as rock vanished. He swung, feet skimming the rising tide, and slammed into the pedestal. He didn't look at the gold. He jammed his thumb into the hidden latch. The lid flew back. He snatched the glass map, tucking it against his chest just as the ceiling groaned. Massive slabs of stone detached, crashing into the water with thunderous force. The pedestal buckled. Leo scrambled toward the ledge, his boots finding purchase on the slick, crumbling rock. He sprinted, the roar of the cave drowning out his own pulse. Dust veiled the air, a hazy cone, a jagged crack ahead, barely wide enough for a person. Sarah was already there, pulling at the stone. They dove into the fissure, shoulders scraping against raw, shifting rock. Behind them, the entire chamber folded inward, the floor and ceiling meeting in a final, deafening boom of grinding stone. They pressed forward into the dark, narrow gap, lungs burning, moving blindly as the world they had just explored ceased to exist. The narrow gap spat them out into the open air. Leo and Sarah tumbled onto the grass, rolling until the incline leveled out. The silence of the hillside was absolute, broken only by their ragged breathing. Above, the sun hung high, casting a warm, steady light across the terrain. Leo sat up, his hands shaking as he reached into his pack. He pulled out the glass map. It was heavy, cool to the touch, and shimmered, even in the daylight. As he unfolded the segments, a sharp beam of concentrated light snapped into existence. It cut through the air, vibrating with a low hum, and projected a glowing line directly toward the jagged, snow-capped peaks in the distance. Sarah wiped the dust from her eyes and stood up, her gaze tracking the light. The fear of the cave faded, replaced by the pull of the horizon. Leo stood, brushed the dirt from his palms, and secured the map. They did not look back at the hillside, nor at the ground that had nearly claimed them. The light showed the way, and the path ahead was clear. They stepped forward, their pace steady, moving toward the mountains in the next stage of the journey.